Greetings, everyone. This is Rockwell Spot Connection with another installment of Mutant Monday, and this week we will be looking at chapters 9 and 10 of Ten of Swords, meaning Excalibur issue number 13 and X-Men number 13. Let's start things off with part 9, Excalibur number 13. This focuses on the prophecy concerning the Braddocks. And it has Jamie and Brian arriving at the Starlight Citadel, where they meet a rather cross Betsy. She's, and apparently the Brian has brought the Sword of Might for Betsy. But, yeah. So the two of them talk, and King Jamie gets to know Saturnine. We also get a write-up on the Sword of Might, which I'll get to that later. But Saturnine wants things to be, when it comes to Captain Britain, things seem to be traditional, meaning Roma and Merlin appear to you and make you choose the Sword of Might or the Amulet of Right. And Betsy mentions she didn't have to choose. But Betsy is eager to find the Starlight Sword. And of course, Saturnine is, well, rather antagonistic towards Betsy, as always. Betsy and Brian do some sparring, though Brian refuses to unsheath the Sword of Might. That night, the amalgamated Captain Britons basically crosses between the other members of Excalibur and Captain Britain. So Rogue, Gambit, Jubilee, and Richter go after Jamie to need to kill him. There's also a write-up on the Captain Britain Corps, explaining that the Captain Britain Corps was an universal team of defenders protecting Great Britain, the other world, and all reality from threats, interior and exterior. As the British Isles was the place where the other world touches Earth, the representative and defender of that land, and indeed that diplomatic alliance, has long been called Captain Britain. There is a little addendum at the bottom that it's the standard title in our reality, but cultural shifts along various times have resulted in various brackets, such as Captain UK, Hauptmann England, or Captain Albion. First assembled by the wizard Merlin, most of these individuals were simply their reality's version of Brian Braddock, son of Sir James Braddock, great ally of the other world. As with every Captain Britain legend, the story is the same. Merlin appears, offering a choice to the Anointed, the Amulet of Right, or the Sword of Might. A choice of the Amulet is said to show purity of heart and strength of reason, the qualities needed to defend the other world. The choice of the Sword of Might is seen as a failed test, as it belies a soul tainted with anger. In reality, for Brian Braddock was unfit otherwise indisposed, the choice has been offered to others and with varying degrees of success. The Captain Britain Corps had been at different times guided by the likes of the wizard Merlin, his daughter Roma, or Lady Saturnine herself. What is eternally unchanging is what they protect and defend, the endless doorways to the Omniverse housed inside the Starlight Citadel. The Corps was known to gather at the Citadel for two occasions: justice or defense. When one of the Captain Britain Corps wronged their brothers or sisters, they would be brought before their peers and judged with the reason and compassion of the Corps embodies and penalized as their peers saw fit. It was at defense that the Corps finally failed, making their last stand in the great incursions that destroyed nearly all of their home realities. To save Brian Braddock, the Lady Opaluna Saturnine cast him out of the Citadel and back into his home reality. The Ivory Kings rode hard, shattering the Corps' strong formation and leaving much of reality undefended. As a result, Saturnine closed the Citadel to anyone but herself and her priestesses, who now defend the Starlight Citadel in place of the defunct Captain Britain Corps. The incursions being what led to the Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars crossover event. Anyways, while the other Captain Britons are attacking Jamie, Betsy is outside sparring, and her and Brian run inside. She tosses the sword of might to Brian. Turns out that Jamie is using his powers on the Captain Britain, and in fact kills the Jubilee one, seemingly crushing her head. The Gambit Captain Britain flings a charged card at Brian, and it hits the scabbard of the Sword of Might, burning it away, thus unsheathing it. And so Brian says, stand back. He draws the Sword of Might in defense of the family of Braddock and the life of his brother, King Jamie of Avalon. He's about to name himself, and Jamie declares him his, and then decides, okay, your name is Captain Avalon. Saturnine shows up, takes the amulet from Betsy, tries to, however Betsy uses her psychic power that destroys it. Saturnine then takes, orders Betsy imprisoned, and takes Brian to her chambers. Also imprisoned are the other Captains Britain. Betsy reaches out, makes contact with the Gambit of the group, explains that it's not as easy as it seems to get out of the cells. However, Jamie also gets in touch with her, and she manages to get free and aboard, and on the back of his griffin. In Lady Saturnine's chambers, she's busy trying to chat up Brian, and reveals that that's where the Starlight Sword is hidden. We also get a write-up on the Starlight Sword. Jamie and Betsy arrive outside, watching everything watching the goings-on. And Betsy notices the discarded Starlight Sword, so she goes and grabs it. Turns out the whole thing was a ruse concocted by Betsy and Brian. And so now, with the Starlight Sword and the Sword of Might, the two of them return to Krakoa and take their spots in the circle. As for our sword write-ups, we'll start off with the Sword of Might. The Sword of Might weighs 1,724 grams, has a blade length of 68 centimeters. It is made from an unidentified ferrous alloy. Its place of origin is unknown, but presumed to be from Galador. Maker is unknown. Secret history: according to the records of the late Dr. James Braddock, the Sword of Might was said by Roma to be forged in the fires of creation and tempered by the power of the universe. The sword has acted as part of the test to find the new Captain Britain for centuries. Traditionally, candidates were provided the option of the Amulet of Right or the Sword of Might. Those who take the sword are said to be fail the test. Brian Braddock, known for his honor and wisdom, famously chose the amulet. Initially. When they were both offered again, however, he chose the sword. Previous holders of the sword include Brian Braddock, Kelsey Lee, and Albion. Recent history. Following his return from captivity in the castle of Morgan Le Fay, Brian Braddock was approached in a dream by Merlin and Roma. He was prompted to choose between the amulet and the sword, as he had before, but this time he found himself morally weakened by his time in Le Fay's grasp and chose the Sword of Might. He awoke holding the blade. The Sword of Might, upon Brian's drawing it, imbued him with the powers within, which he rejected, asking Excalibur to bear the sword to Braddock Lighthouse, deep within the English soil. Okay. Which then brings us to the Starlight Sword. Weight. Physical weight, 0 grams. Wielding weight, 1,724 grams. Blade length, 68 centimeters. Material. The Starlight Sword is said to be crafted from a piece of the Starlight Citadel itself. The building that houses the countless doorways to each reality. The exact material or alloy is unknown. Place of origin is Otherworld. It was crafted by Saturnine. The Starlight Sword was forged to arm Captain Britain in the absence of Merlin, Roma, and the objects of their test. Made from a chunk of the Citadel, the holder of the blade steps into the role of Saturnine's knight, Otherworld's protector and defender of the Omniverse. None have previously held the sword before. And that is the end of Part 9. Which brings us to Chapter 10 in X-Men number 13. So we begin in the Healing Gardens. We begin with write-ups on the swords Grass Cutter and God Killer, which we'll get to after the issue. In the Healing Gardens, Banshee's healing. However, Healer's having trouble healing Apocalypse. It suggests... first off, Polaris is tasked with restraining Apocalypse. And it is suggested that maybe Hope could try augmenting Healer's powers. However, Healer's afraid that could just as easily kill Apocalypse as heal him. But Apocalypse is just like, fine, do it. And he tells us the story of Okara, the One Land, and the war fought. It was Okara, the One Land. It was ancient before the word existed, but not yet old in the way that they were old. The twilight sword of the enemy tore the world asunder, and what was one became two. 100 of our greatest champions took the war to the enemy. 100 champions and their champion, the White Sword. From the chasm between them, from that dark world, the enemy poured into this world. The living... I do not know what happened on the... Okay. Alright, I think I've actually been reading this wrong the entire time. One became two, and from the chasm between them, from that dark world, the enemy poured into this world. The living icons of Okara, the twin elementals of life, were the first to fall. Thousands, tens of thousands followed. The broken lands ran red with mutant blood, and more would have surely been spilled if not for the 100. 100 of our greatest champions took the war to the enemy. 100 champions and their champion, the White Sword. I do not know what happened on the other side of that rift, but the Horde's numbers dwindled, and as they became weak, we became strong. Let me tell you of the glory of Genesis. She was stronger than all of us. Strong enough to break them, to turn them back, to reduce the enemy to peace. And so an envoy of the enemy comes to Apocalypse and his family, seemingly at what is now the Quiet Council Chamber of Krakoa. Apparently they've asked to parley with the mutants. And one of them sets out a box and pulls a mask out. The mask is put on. And the mask, which appears to be sentient, says, "Let me see you with true eyes. I see now what all the furor is about. I could read you if I wanted, even a world away, which is closer than any world should be to another. But there's no need. I know quality when I see it. Conquest is always best when facing a true test. Who is it that seeks out someone at their weakest? In that spirit, I would like to make an offer. To you strong mutants of great quality." And so she's asked to make the offer. They're asked to make the offer. Which they say that apparently generosity is nowhere in their nature. Sincerity is. And then the mask wishes for the mutants to earn the offer. And so Genesis comes forward, killing the remnants of the envoy. And Genesis and Iska then went into, along with Genesis and Apocalypse's children, went to Araka. And as she left, she told Apocalypse to judge them, see that only the fittest remain. Turns out the helmet that was placed upon the member of the enemy envoy was the helmet of the golden helmet of Amenth. Quick write-up explains that Amenth is a black planet of black death, a hellscape of demons and things of a darker origin. A chaos world of wild space that would be completely uncontrollable to the living if not for the golden helm of annihilation that commands the unconquered horde of Amenth. The person who wears the helm rules that dark world, but the helm itself rules the wearer. Possessed by some elder god, a primordial force of the spirit of that world made manifest. The helm is seductive, all-consuming, and only a wearer of great strength and power can hope to live through the experience. It is a crown for the fit, and only the fit can rule the hell. In the present, Apocalypse is healed, and Pope mistakenly claims he's also whole, but he explains he's far from whole. He simply tells Xavier that he needs a sword, and him and which we get a write-up on. It's called Scarab. We'll get to that in a second. But in Egypt, the Temple of the Horsemen, Gorgon brings Apocalypse there, where he now is actually rather mad that this temple is no longer a temple to the is actually a temple to the living rather than dead. So he destroys the monuments of the four horsemen, the first four, which of course are where the pieces of his sword are housed. He then destroys the temple, and he and Gorgon head back to Krakoa. So, the two write-ups we've got. First off, God Killer and Grass Cutter. Grass Cutter's weight is listed as 1,380 grams. God Killer's is listed as 1,400 grams. Grass Cutter is 71 centimeters long. God Killer is 72 centimeters long. Material on both is unknown. They were made in the Forge of the Gods, made by the immortal blacksmith with no name. The forging. In the war between Greek and Japanese gods, Zeus and Amatsu Mikaboshi separately asked the blacksmith with no name, the god hammer of the immortal forge, to create the perfect weapon for them. He made two swords. One was perfect, called Grass Cutter. The other was flawed, called God Killer. History. Gods made these. Men spoiled them. One mutant raised them up. That one mutant being Gorgon. Next up, Scarab. Weight, 680,388 grams. Blade length, variable, adaptive. Material, red gold iron of the old kings of Atlantis. Place of origin, Okara. Maker, Iska the Unbeaten. Attributes, imbued with external sadness. The forging, crafted in 4 parts to celebrate the birth of their 4 children. The Scarab blade was forged by Iska the Unbeaten as a gift for her brother by marriage, Apocalypse. Made from the melted recast blades of the vanquished Uhari royal vanguard, the Scarab blade is a sovereign weapon of a broken kingdom, fitting for the Genesis line of Okara. 1,000 years after Araka was lost to Amenth, Apocalypse broke the blade, buried the past, and went forth to judge the world. And that is where the issue ends. That's it for this week's Mutant Monday. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.